And joining us right now is Joe DiGenova, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. Hey, Joe.
Good morning.
So we're still seeing these riots over Ferguson in various cities. We had protesters shut down I-395 over the weekend. By the way, what's the law here? These guys walk out in the middle of the expressway and link arms and stop traffic in both directions on I-395. Apparently, the cops went out there and said, all right, if you don't get off, we're going to arrest you. And 8 of them stayed, so they got arrested. Why is not everybody arrested when they do something like that? That's a dangerous thing.
It's discretionary on the part of the police officers, but in fact, blocking a public street purposefully is a crime. It may be a misdemeanor. It can be a felony depending upon the circumstances. They're trying to, police departments all over the country are trying not to have confrontations, so a lot of stupid stuff is happening in the name of free speech.
Yeah, sure are. Also, Deval Patrick, he's the governor of Massachusetts. I'm telling you, you're already chuckling, and a former U.S. attorney as well. He said this yesterday when asked whether there should have been an indictment in the Ferguson case.
Without knowing all the facts, of course, I wanted to see an indictment.
Yeah, there you go. I don't have the facts, but of course there should have been an indictment. What do you think of this mindset that, listen, maybe there wasn't cause for an indictment, but for the public good, so that the people of Ferguson felt better about the process, they should have gone to trial?
Well, Coop Deval, as we call him, because he used to have a big Cadillac until the people made him take it away when he was governor. Deval Patrick is an example of bad lawyering by a number of people who have been on the Michael Brown side of the story. All of them wanted a trial. Forget whether or not the law requires an indictment first. Bottom line is Deval Patrick is playing to his African-American base, trying to sound good, possible future in politics, although I don't know what it would be. Really inane comments by lawyers. Deval Patrick is a lawyer. He was from the Justice Department. He was in the Civil Rights Division. He, above all, should know better. He wanted to see a trial. You only want to see a trial when the facts determine that it's necessary. This state grand jury determined that it was not necessary. And the family lawyers, including Mr. Crump and others, who said that the only way you can have any faith in the process is if there's a trial, are either very bad lawyers or very obnoxious citizens.
What about the fact that Officer Darren Wilson, a man who was no-billed by the grand jury, who, according to many police, when they look at the evidence in this case, did everything sort of by the book that he should have done in a situation like this, has been forced, well, basically not forced, but he has decided to resign as a result of all this.
Well, I mean, what this shows is, and I understand from ABC News that there is no severance payment for him. What a disgrace. You want to bring people into law enforcement? Oh, what a great incentive to come into law enforcement. You do the right thing. You shoot a fleeing felon, someone with apparently a massive juvenile record, and you get to be fired and you get no payment for your public service. Wow, let's all join those police forces. I mean, what idiots. The fact is, Michael Brown, the decedent, was a thug, and he tried to kill a police officer, and a police officer did what he was supposed to do, which was shoot him. And the notion somehow that Darren Wilson is the problem shows you just how bad things are in black communities around this country, because most blacks want law enforcement. They want good law enforcement, and for the most part, they have good law enforcement. It's people like Al Sharpton who go around pretending that there's a problem who have made this what it is. Not a word about black-on-black homicide. Wow, what leadership.
Hey, Joe, and let me. You just mentioned this juvenile criminal record of Michael Brown, and I know, listen, he's dead. I get it, and we're not supposed to say anything bad about him because he's dead at the hands of Darren Wilson. But now that he is dead, he doesn't have any privacy protection for his juvenile criminal record. Why has that not been made public?
Because authorities have chosen not to do so. And I would say this, all these great news organizations that have been covering Ferguson, from the national networks, all the great big newspapers, why aren't they filing lawsuits to get his juvenile record disclosed?
Certainly part of the story, I would think, if they were interested in the full story.
By the way, it's on the Internet. Yeah. You can get copies of his juvenile record. It's quite a tasty one for people who are interested enough. But let's see whether or not the New York Times, the Washington Post, all the blathering papers file Freedom of Information Act requests to get his juvenile record. I will wager you a month's salary that none of them will do it.
All right, so that we've been talking earlier this morning about this case going before the Supreme Court. Has to do with a man who posted some rap lyrics on his Facebook page, but the rap lyrics were about how he wanted to kill his wife, his ex-wife, I guess it was, and some other things that many people found very objectionable. They went after this guy. He says, "Hey, look, it was my art. It was just my expression of my art. I had no intention of carrying any of this out." This is a sort of an interesting case to go before the High Court.
Well, here's the point that everybody has to remember. If, in fact, you publish a real threat on the Internet that you're going to kill someone, that is prosecutable. The Internet is not immune from prosecution. If you yell a threat, if you write a threat in a letter, if you email a threat, or if you put a threat on the Internet somehow, that threat is prosecutable under state and federal law. The question in this case is whether or not what he wrote was in fact a threat. People should not be confused about this. This is whether or not his musings were a threat. And that's a question of fact for a jury and a prosecutor, and the Supreme Court's going to review whether or not this is somehow protected speech. They're going to have to find out it was a poem and that it was not in fact a threat. I don't know how you do that, but just so everybody knows, no confusion, if you render a real threat on the Internet, that is eminently prosecutable.
Joe DiGenova, we had Mark Stein on last week. He's in town for various reasons that were rather unpleasant for him, defending a defamation suit, which I'm sure he'll win in the long run, speaking of free speech. But I raised the issue that, he's a legal immigrant. He spent a lot of money becoming a legal citizen of the United States and going through the legal process. And he said this.
We legal immigrants have got the biggest class action suit.
There you go. He was sort of joking, but really, now that the president has just sort of waved his magic pen there and granted amnesty to people who broke the law and didn't spend the money to come to this country legally, can legal immigrants now, legitimately say, hey, what about us? I want my money back.
No, actually, absolutely not. There's no basis for doing that. But the people who may have a lawsuit are the people waiting in line, who have followed all the legal rules, who are, in fact, now in line waiting to get in, can't get status of any kind, and all of these people who broke the law to get in here now have legal status. We're not quite sure what it is, and neither is the president. So the people who are following the rules are the ones who are penalized, who are waiting in line. That's why I hope this president continues to do all these outrageous things that he's doing, because every time he does it, he makes it more likely than not that the Democratic Party will become extinct. Yeah. That's why Chuck Schumer went out of his way last week to distance himself from Obamacare. Can you imagine one of the three main leaders of the Democratic Senate who shoved it down America's throat now said it was a bad idea? Schumer has just pronounced himself one of the dumbest people in the world.
All right, Joe DiGenova. Thanks for joining us. Always good to start our week with Joe DiGenova.